Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us today. My name is Omar Bashir, and I'm an Education USA advisor with Education USA, and I'm based in the Karachi office. Today, we will be talking about Nouman Ahmed's Fulbright journey and how being a Fulbright scholar changed his life trajectory. But before we start, a little bit about who we are. USEFP is the Fulbright Commission in Pakistan. USEFP promotes mutual understanding between the people of Pakistan and the people of United States through educational and cultural exchange. To learn more about our organization, programs, and facilities, you can check out our website, which is www.usefp.org. USCFP has several departments, including programs, advising, and one, and you can find out more information about these departments and the services that they provide on our official website. Also, before we start, I want you to know that we will be taking the questions and answer towards the end of the session. So please type your questions in the Q&A box on the screen, and Nouman will be taking those questions towards the end of the session. Now, I would like to officially hand over the session to Nouman so that he can tell us about his Fulbright journey and how it has helped shape the person that he is today. Over to you, Nouman.
Thank you, Amar. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I'll just start with my introduction and then we can talk about selection, what happens once you have been selected, and how's the experience there once you are in the US. I will start with the introduction. So basically, currently I'm working at State Bank of Pakistan in its digital innovation department. Before going for Fulbright, so I was my period for Fulbright was basically August 2022 to May 2024. So I just came back like this year. Um, and before that, I was also working in the same department in the same role, and I have just resumed that role after coming back here. Before joining State Bank, I had done my BBA from IB Karachi. I had worked in HPL for 6 months in its assistant relationship manager, which is an entirely different field from what I am doing currently. Even though I had applied for Fulbright, even when I was working in HPL, but I was rejected. I will just talk about it in a bit. But yes, IBA, BBA Karachi, BBA, IBA Karachi. Then I worked in HPL. Then I came to State Bank. Then I went for Fulbright, and then I have just joined State Bank back. So that's my introduction. I think the most important part. I think most of you. That's why you have guys have joined it about how what actually makes for a good application and what are the stages and how does the whole process works. So I think no, I think more or less everybody knows the four components. So there is GRE and TOEFL that you must have to give. There are personal statements, the three references that you have to provide, and then once you pass the preliminary stage, then you have a interview with I think four people. It was four people at my time. I'm not sure if it was some practice, but basically I feel like the most important part of my application, I think a Fulbright application in general, is personal statement. And I don't think people devote that much time which it requires. But I think fundamentally that is the most important part of your application. Of course, GRE and TOEFL. I think a lot of people get intimidated by the GRE, and they number one, it is intimidating. There is like no let's be honest about it. But I think still for the Fulbright application specifically, your personal statements matter a lot. So even for the people who are focusing on GRE and all those kind of things, I would also highly recommend that you start drafting your personal statements like right now. I think the deadline is in March, someday in March. So it's like there are still 2 months roughly speaking, but I would highly recommend that you at least have a first draft of your personal statement right now, and then you can refine it over the 2 months. For GRE and TOEFL, I feel like for TOEFL, if you are doing if you have prepared enough for GRE, I don't think you need any extra preparation for TOEFL. Your preparation for GRE is sufficient enough. So you don't like I didn't prepare for TOEFL at all. Like didn't even consult a single, didn't open a single book. And I'm not saying that I'm very good at English or something, but if you are preparing for GRE, um, I think you're pretty much okay without any prep also. For GRE, there are a lot of questions in general about like how much score is required. Number one, it varies from course to course, university to university, and which program you are applying. And number two, for Fulbright, I think like I went to Carnegie Mellon University. which is top 50 universities in the world. So it's like a competitive university. My GRE score, frankly speaking, was 315, which is not a very high percentile. Uh, but I think, in my opinion, this is strictly in my opinion, I don't think Fulbright or UCFP are, advertises any kind of specific number. But I think anything 300 plus is safe for most programs. But I have seen people who have scoring like 290s and even they got the Fulbright scholarship. One thing is that it also varies from program to program in the sense that what's your score on qualitative versus quantitative. So let's say if you are applying for English literature, your qualitative score is going to matter a lot more than your quantitative score. If you're applying for any engineering field, your I think score is going to be more important than your qualitative score. So that's, I think, rather than being obsessed about the GRE scores, there should be like also enough time given to the personal statements. Um, I had reject. I had been rejected from Fulbright at least once. I applied back in 2019, immediately after graduating. And the issue, I'll tell you what was. I think what was the issue. I think in the sense that there are certain fields which are in. So there's this perception that Fulbright sense is more favorable to people who are pursuing, let's say, water studies and environmental science or fields like that. Since your background aligns with these kind of degrees, I wouldn't recommend just opting for these degrees just to go to the US. Um, that I think that's a, like a recurring feedback. That's a recurring issue every year. I think with applicants I talk to that they, let's say they graduate from BBA and they are experienced in financial, like fintech sector or financial banks or something like that, and then they would apply for fields like let's say public policy or English literature or film studies, which are like not related to them at all, and they can justify it in their personal statements. So I would highly recommend not to do that in your applications. Stick to your field, or if you want to deviate a bit, be able to justify like why are you deviating from it. Um, so I applied when I was in HPL. I applied for education policy because I had 1 year of experience interning or volunteering with the Citizens Foundation, but I got rejected. I made it to the interview stage, but I got rejected after that. In 2020, one, I applied again. This time I applied for public policy, and this time my experience was in public policy because I was working in the State Bank, which is like a public sector institution. So my actually work experience aligned with what degree I was gonna be going for in my master's. So I think that kind of helped. Is your video, there is a comment your video is lagging or frozen sometimes. Is it like for every participant?
It's fine now, actually.
Okay. Okay, cool. So like my tip number one would be to not deviate from your background. Stick to that more or less. Number two would be to actually spend a lot of time on personal statements because they matter a lot. Number three, reach out to people on LinkedIn and ask them to review your personal statement. I think there are actually two statements. So there is objective statement, what you want to study, and then there is personal statement. So for both of them, reach out to people. You would easily find people on LinkedIn who are in the similar program that you're applying for and ask them to review. Most of the times they will review it. Most of the time, even when I was applying, I think the people I reached out to, they were generally very helpful. So that wasn't an issue as such. Uh, and then there are references. In references, the ideal situation would be to get references from people you have either worked with directly or there has been some sort of a close relationship in academic setting or in a professional setting. But if that's not the situation, at least approach your professors who you think are number one gonna have nice things to say about you, and number two, still uh, they are somewhat aligned to your field, and also that their own background somewhat aligns to what you are gonna be studying. So, for example, if I was applying for public policy, I would go for a professor, let's say, who taught me business law, because law and public policy are very similar, are very close fields. So there is needs to be some sort of alignment between the two. Um, and also, I think I out of the three references, I was easily able to get two, but for the third references, I emailed all my professors, who I had taken courses with during undergraduate, and most of the professors were pretty okay with giving me a reference. So, like, if you don't, if there is nobody on the top of your head who can be like, should you ask for a reference? Just reach out to the professors. I think most of the times, in my experience, they were pretty helpful. So that's that. And then there is interview. So let's say you get an interview call. So I have given interview two times. Both times there was one in person, which was in 2019, and the second one was online in 2021 because of COVID. For both of the interviews, there were four panelists, and there were like four or five questions. There's the one generic question that was common across both interviews was how would you introduce Pakistani culture in when you are in US, or how would you adjust there? So I have a very good answer to that ready in your mind if you get selected for interview, because in both interviews the same question was asked to me. Number two, there was one question about directly about my work experience. Another question was about, like, let's say I said I want to pursue public policy. The question was, why can't you do it in Pakistan? Like, why do you need to go to US? Or let's say if not US, then why can't you go to UK or Canada or someplace like that? Why US? That was one of the questions. Um, and I think the last question was also very similar. Like, how would you adjust there? Do you anticipate any issues? Like, what kind of health challenges you are anticipating? So, like, honestly, very run-of-the-mill question. So it's not like they are gonna like ask you questions which are gonna be like, oh, are very tricky questions. Nothing like that. It was pretty simple questions, very basic run-of-the-mill questions. So have very good answers prepared to them in advance. Um, one of the answers that I remember, I can just, I guess, like share that was in response to how would you introduce Pakistani culture. Um, I had just before the interview, a couple of months ago, I had read this article on Dawn, which was about like this couple of students, Pakistan students, who introduced Urdu language as an elective during their studies at US. US universities allow students to offer courses. A lot of times they are non-elective, or if even like non-credit junior courses, or even if they're credit courses, it's like just one unit. Um, but I thought that was a very good way to introduce Urdu language, like as a course, as a way to communicate your culture. So I just said that I can do that, and I also gave credit to the article, like that. Hey, I have read this article, and this idea is from there. It's not my original idea, but I think this idea is pretty good. And I gave full credit to the author of that article, and that I think kind of worked. So yeah, just like these basic questions, have your answers prepared for them. After that, you get offer. So there's either you get principal offer, which means that you have been selected for sure, or you get waitlisted. Um, I don't know. A lot of people ask, like, if you have been waitlisted, how many much chances do you have of getting selected as principal after that? I honestly don't have an answer to that. I think at my time, most of the people got the principal candidate offer, but I honestly have like I can't say it with like 100% certainty. So yeah, there's that. Okay. So now you have gotten the principal. When you're applying for the Fulbright application, you have to give like you. I think it was optional at my time. I'm not sure what's the status right now, but at my time, you could optionally give name of three or four universities that you think you want to go to. It's not mandatory that Fulbright will send you to those universities. But yeah, you basically lay out your plan that, hey, if I'm selected, I would like to go to these universities. I kept a mix of Ivy League universities, middle tier universities, um, and then once you have been selected, Fulbright folks give you this university plan of theirs. So some of the suggestions they incorporate of yours, but they can also have the power to not hear, like to not pay any heed to any of your suggestions. So at least in my case, I think two out of four suggestions were accepted. And then they send my application to all these universities that they have finalized. You can negotiate a bit with your advisor, whoever has been assigned to you. Like you can present with the reason that, hey, this university you have been you have selected for me. My plan doesn't align with theirs. So if you can please kindly remove this university and add some other in your plan. Uh, there is no like certainty that the advisor will listen to you. Um, and there are also certain universities where you would find a lot of Fulbright folks every year. So Carnegie Mellon, where I went to, like at least for the 3 4 years, I know that there have been like 4 or 5 or 6 people every year that is sent there. So there are certain universities where you would find more Fulbright folks rather than some other. So just be mindful of something. And then when you are selecting universities, be very mindful the kind of campus life you want. So let's say if you want to go to bigger cities, like let's say, sir, are there any specific universities for Fulbright? I don't think so. I don't think at least they have any such like list advertised or publicly available, at least in my, I think, in my knowledge. So there is no such list of university that Fulbright sends to, which I can like direct you to. But yeah, but coming back to when selecting universities, be very mindful the kind of city that you want to go to, because I know people who wanted to go to US and experience like New York or California or Los Angeles, stuff like that. But then in when they were selecting their university plan, they didn't think about it, and they gave universities which were like in smaller or mid-tier cities. So if that is a factor for you, it doesn't necessarily have to be, but if that is a factor for you, be mindful of it. Um, Also, one of the things I think is stipend, which I will talk about later. So I'll just like, but yeah, every city has its own stipend, so it depends like where you go to, you get a different stipend. Uh, Anyway, now that you have that Fulbright applies on your behalf to 4 universities, and then got offer from 3 or 4 universities. And then I think Fulbright makes a decision where they will like send you final decision. That's their call. But again, you can, I think, negotiate a bit. Like let's say out of 3 universities, you don't want to go to, let's say Carnegie Mellon. But your advisor is keen on sending you there. So I think you can present your rationale. I'll just uh, I'll answer this question towards my part. Okay. So let's say you have selected these universities. Now the paperwork. So paperwork is pretty simple. There is no such extra work for passport because UCFP does all that work on your behalf. So there's a bit of relief there. There are some medical forms you have to fill, which again are not very hectic. So paperwork more or less is like not very bureaucratic in a certain sense. It's pretty simple. For visa also, they arrange an appointment for you, and then they arrange a transport to and from the consulate. So it's a pretty simple and streamlined process. It's not like very hectic. Before like a couple of weeks or a month before your departure, there's a orientation usually in Islamabad, where they call every Fulbright candidate to the, I think it was in Marriott or Serena. I don't remember it correctly at my time. But they give you 1 day stay in the hotel, and then there's like a 2 day orientation where they tell you about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, about the culture, about the cultural shocks you should expect, stuff like that. It's pretty chill in the sense that like you get to meet all the super candidates. So it's a pretty like a really nice get together before you leave the country. Also, at this point, you should like if you have been selected at this like before pre-departure orientation, you should have been thinking about all the housing and medical and insurance, all that kind of stuff. So I'll just kind of um, quickly move to that. Okay, so now you have arrived in the US. Um, Usually, I think pretty much every university I have know they have either a whole orientation week or at least a couple of days where they um like just like orientation here in Pakistani universities. They tell you about the courses they offer, about the campus, about the city, about the resources that are available for you, stuff like that. So I would a lot of for people in my program skipped orientation for some reason, but I would highly recommend that if you are selected, make sure that your flight is such that you get to attend the orientation. Don't skip it. You do make a lot of friends during that 1 week because there's like you're in a new city, you don't know people at all. Even Pakistani community, you're gonna take time to find them and be friend with them. So that 1 week, that's like the prime opportunity for you to make friends on the campus. So I would highly recommend that you attend your orientation. Housing is like it's honestly very hectic somehow. Because number one, because आप पाकिस्तान में यहाँ पे रह रहे हैं, you don't have like US number. A lot of landlords would ask for US number. You don't have such social security number. A lot of landlords ask for that. But find seniors Pakistani on them, get in touch with them by Facebook or LinkedIn and seek their help in that regard. But proactively like find housing. We started finding I went to Pittsburgh, which is like a mid-tier city in Pennsylvania. Um, we started finding housing in May. My flight was in August, and I hadn't found a house 1 week before I left. Um, so like that's something that was like a really, I don't know, a big hassle there. So be very proactive about it if you get selected. Start like just considering your options way before you leave. But there are a lot of questions about like how much of a expense it is, what's the daily cost of living there on month-to-month basis. So I will be open. I think my stipend in Pittsburgh was 1,500, and Pittsburgh's cost of living is very affordable. It's a small. It's so usually your rent would like in a city like Pittsburgh, it will be like between 400 to 800. And then for groceries, you can, if you like are very reasonable about it, can be like $300. And you're left with 400 to the super expensive. But it varies from city to city. I think in New York, the average rent of my friends was to 1,500 to 2,000, $2,200. But then your stipend is also adjusted according to that. So I think New York stipend was 2,500, if I remember correctly, but I'm not very certain. But yeah, but it's like way higher than the Pittsburgh. So like I think cost of living mostly is very uh, directly linked with the stipend you're gonna get. So just something to be mindful when you are selecting your universities and the cities you're gonna go to. And then there's like question like, can you work? Number one, you cannot work outside the campus during your semesters. You can only work off campus during summers. If internship is a requirement for your degree, if it's not, you cannot do that. If internship is a requirement, you have to seek Fulbright's approval, and yeah, then you can do your internship and earn from it. During semester, you can do on-campus jobs, but I don't know if it's a policy or just a general practice, but in first semester, a lot of students don't do on-campus job. Number one, just because you have landed, you don't know much about other things, how things work. So in first semester, I didn't know anybody, at least in my university, was working. But from second semester onwards, you can work. Again, you have to seek Fulbright's approval before accepting the offer. But and also you can only do online on-campus jobs. So you can be a TA, teaching assistant, or you can work in library or stuff like that. Um, I can also I think there is no harm in sharing the numbers also. So for TA in Pittsburgh, at least the salary range from $15 to $25 per hour, depending whether you are TAing for a master's class or a bachelor's class or a PhD class. For non-TA jobs like receptionist, like library and stuff like that, the job was the hourly wage was like $10 per hour or $12 per hour, stuff like that. So, yeah, my suggestion number one would be to like just try to find TA jobs even before you leave Pakistan. Like approach your professors. Um, Number one, TA jobs pay well, sure, but also they look good on your resume. So in long term, if you wanna like thinking from career perspective, a TA job is gonna look like way better on your resume than let's say a librarian job. So yeah, and also only 20 hours are allowed in a week. So again, another thing to be mindful of, you can work 20 hours during semester. Okay. Then there are academics. So about courses, I would highly recommend that once you are in a certain program enrolled, don't just stick to that program. So I was enrolled in a Masters of Science in Public Policy and Management course, but pretty much I took courses from whole campus. Like I took courses from School of Computer Science, I took courses from School of Engineering, I took courses from even law school. Just like because I think at least in IB Karachi where I did my undergraduate from, you couldn't sit in a class unless you were enrolled in that class or you had the explicit permission of professor. In my like masters, pretty much I could go to any course and just sit in the class and nobody cared that why was I in that room. So enroll in those classes, like go to those classes and try to get as much exposure as you could because again you're just a 2 years or a year at more like a year mostly, so try to make the most of it and go for courses outside your school. I would highly recommend. There was also a program which allowed me to take courses from other universities also, like I could enroll for a I think one course only in another university. So there are like a lot of options available like that in universities, so make full use of them. I would highly recommend. um, Also, there are like these non-credit arts. So, for example, if you wanna take like swimming, wanna swimming, or wanna learn golf, there was like this non-unit course, 3D printing or GIS or geo storytelling. There was one on, I remember, impromptu comedy, stand-up comedy, on theater. So you can take all these courses. Even like you don't have to pay anything extra to them. Um, You don't have to get any special permissions as long as your course load is complete. Other than these courses, you can take these courses pretty easily. So one, I would highly recommend to go for all these courses. There's a question like how much do you have to study? I think they even for the supposedly easy degrees, like let's say public policy is considered it's um one of the easier degrees. That's a perception in general. But I think ec- every program, like students I talk to, like even if it's drama, even if it's theater, business school, law school, public policy school, engineering, everyone has like is like deep into like the work. On weekdays, the study burden is honestly immense. But do have a lot of resources available to you, and after like a I don't know, a couple of months, it becomes very easy. Like once you're settled in, you get very used to a study burden. Quite like it doesn't like bother you that much. There is extra tuition available. There are tutors available for you on campus usually. So if you're struggling with a certain subject, you can go to those tutors for free. There are resources available, like for example, uh, if you want, how do I put it? Like if you have to, if there's a certain course that you're struggling with and you don't think you're gonna be able to pass it, you can just do pass fail. Um, that's like what a lot of my batchmates did. So in general, it does feel like there's a lot of things to do, but you do manage it pretty easily. Like after a couple of months, everyone learns to manage it, and everyone learns to manage it besides the other stuff. Like you're gonna be doing job as well, you're gonna be traveling a lot as well, you're gonna be socializing a lot as well. But after some time, you just like get very used to it pretty quickly, and I actually started enjoying all this. So I don't think it's something which is unmanageable. Okay, now about the community there. So for the at least for the first 2 weeks or at least a month, you do feel homesick a lot. But like I don't think there would be many universities where you wouldn't find a Muslim student association. There are universities where you won't find a Pakistani student association. There was none at my university. So we made one in the second year. We all just came together and created Pakistan Student Association. But you would mostly find Muslim Student Association, and they are pretty active. Um, I was talking to my friends in other universities. Muslim student associations usually do get a lot of attention, a lot of funds. So they are pretty, I know, well equipped, but like it's just not like if like I know the Muslim and the religious connotation is there, but they do a lot of non-religious stuff. So I know they do food drives. I know they help with the housing. They help with socializing. There are a lot of events which are just non-religious. So even if you like, I know a lot of people who found their housing via Muslim Student Association. So that's like way to go about it. Sorry about that. So, like, do look up for these kind of societies even before you leave Pakistan and join their Telegram or Discord channels and do talk to people there. They are pretty helpful. I know, like on Eid, during Ramadan, on every Jummah, you would run into all these people pretty frequently. So you do become good friends with them really quickly, and they are really helpful. So I think if you are looking for resources, how to find housing, how to just navigate through the city in general, Muslim Student Association is a very good resource. And if there is Pakistani Student Association, which is not very often, especially in small universities, but if it's there, yeah, that's an extra additional resource for you. The city I went to, it did not have a lot of like this is specifically Pakistanis. So it was like just 20 or 25 students, Pakistani students in the whole city. So but it's like a small community, which is in a way certainly a good thing because you do bond with each other pretty quickly. Uh, and after one point, you think that you're in a new country, like, but there is just so much socialization that you actually after one point have to reduce it. At least I had to reduce it because even if there are 20, 25 people, you are seeing them very frequently. You're gonna be running into them at pretty much everything. You're gonna run into them at grocery stores, at parks, at masjid, everywhere. So you do become friends with them pretty quickly. In my case, like the city I went to, there was also a local Fulbright chapter, Pittsburgh, a Greater Pittsburgh Fulbright Association, and they used to host these events where they would invite people from Fulbright candidates from all the countries. So I did get to meet people who were on Fulbright from Italy, from India, from Thailand, all these other countries. So that's a pretty good like association to look for if your city has one. A lot of universities also have these programs called host family, where if you apply, let's say in my university you had to apply for host family, and technically it wasn't a family, it was just one of the professors, but they matched you with one of the professors who's willing to work, who's willing to act as a host. So I was assigned a professor as such. And she was pretty helpful. So in the initial few weeks, she would take me around the city. She showed me a lot of local museums. She invited us to Thanksgiving, Christmas. So if there is any such program offered by universities, again, I would recommend to go and join those programs because it's at the end of the day, it's a cultural exchange program. So look out for opportunities where you can actually get exposure to culture. I think this is the last slide in my presentation, but yeah, Pittsburgh, I think the cost of living was not that high. I was able to save like a very significant amount of money, so I used it to travel. And traveling is not like not that what is like it's not that expensive in US. So especially if you are okay with staying in hostels and dorms, it's not that expensive, at least in my opinion. So I traveled a lot. There, out of the 12 months in a year, my university was off for like 5 months. So 4 months break in during summers, and then 1 month break during winters, and then a week break during each semester, in the middle of the semester. So there's like a lot of free time for you to travel. So I would highly recommend that do spend a bit on traveling because I think a lot of people do regret if they don't travel, they come back here and then they miss out on all these opportunities. So like just travel extensively. Um, when you are selecting your universities, that can be an additional factor for you. So there are certain cities where cost of living is low, but they're also close to big cities. Like for example, Pittsburgh is one such. It's 4 hours to DC, 4 hours to Toronto, Canada, um, 5 hours to New York. So you can look for cities like that, which are closer to other bigger cities. So yeah, that's number one recommendation. Number two, look out for opportunities where you can volunteer. So I volunteered with this local organization called City of Asylum, which is basically an NGO. It used to give shelters to writers and artists who have been exiled from their countries. Um, so I worked there for their events, and it was a pretty active NGO. I also worked with International Film Festival. My university had one, so I volunteered for them as well, and we screened a Pakistani movie there. We invited that movie's director there. It was like a um, uh, pretty well attended event. And people usually, especially the natives there in US, they look forward to attending these kind of events because they don't get much chance otherwise. So yeah, overall, just try to find opportunities where you can volunteer and give back to the communities. Then university also would also have a lot of mixers. They would have mixers like international student mixer. They would have first generation students mixer, black student mixer, Asian student mixer. Just go to all these mixers and go with like very open mind that you are gonna be able that you're gonna like come out with having more friends. My in my case, my university is not that big. It was like 10,000 students, which by US standards is not that big of a university, but I was still able to make a lot of friends just by going to these mixers. And people are generally very open and receptive. There's like not much hesitation. So use this opportunity. Um, also, I feel like maybe it's just because my program was public policy, so I was interested in local activism and how it works. It was also at a time when the whole Palestine issue started back in October. So you can like to a reasonable extent, do not go overboard, I would recommend, but to a reasonable extent, you can be a part of these all of these local movements. And there are like a lot of movements. So there was one movement where they were trying to stop an oil company. There was one movement, and these are pretty like coordinated and active and super organized movements. There was one where they were trying to clean the water in a local park. There was one where they were trying to uh, stop government from using lead in the paint, stuff like that. I can't like uncountable number of such movements, and they are pretty active and just not just like name on the paper. So be a part of all these movements, work with them, learn how they operate, go to their local government hearings, learn how that operates. Like it's pretty eye-opening experience. So I would highly recommend that doing as well. But yeah, but that's pretty much it from my end. I'm not sure if I answered all of your questions, potential questions, but yeah, but do ask if you have any. I'll start with the one with the ones in chat. You should not shake us to okay. About civil servants, my roommate it was like in the first year, my roommate was a civil servant. They do not get any special preference. They do not get any preference like for the choice of universities or anything. Yeah, nothing as such. Also, the course was can be the I'm not very sure about the second question about the thesis research work is pending. I know you can extend your semester. If you haven't completed your coursework, you can extend it, I think, but I'm not sure who funds it. I'm not very sure. Um, for that that question, like what would you like to say to those who are trying for the undergraduate level? I don't think you can apply for undergraduate during for Fulbright under Fulbright. There is a separate, I think, program for undergraduate, just like exchange program for one semester, I think. But you cannot apply for undergraduate as far as I know. All these questions, yeah, I don't know anything about your grad interview. Once Aslam has, I'll just open your mic, I guess.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There are two questions. First one was related to especially the personal statement and study objective. How do I alter that, considering that I would also want to pursue a degree in master's, that is a program in public policy. So, with public policy in mind, how should one curate their personal statement and study objective? That's the first question. And the second question would be how it's more a personal thing question. How's life when you come back to Pakistan after having your Fulbright experience? What do you think that a substantial value present when he comes back, or and is it a? I mean, does one have fun here coming back? Is there always a sense of that one should go back and explore opportunities overseas?
Um, okay, just to answer the first question, about the personal statement and how you should approach it and how you should curate it. Number one, be just be mindful that objective of Fulbright program, like they expect you to come back to Pakistan and serve in Pakistan. That's the whole idea of the program. So when you are writing your personal statement and study objective statement, talk about what you're gonna study, how it's gonna benefit Pakistan. Um, Very quickly, I can just share what I did. Like I was working in fintech related policy. That was my field at the time. So I wrote that Pakistan is making great strides in fintech. COVID has helped the digitalization. We have RAST coming up and all these new systems which are going to help the digitalization. But having said all this, there's still a lot of gap in the policy making here. It's not very data driven. It's not very evidence based. So when I wanna come back, I want to implement. I wanna like formulate the policies as it's done in US, like how they do it. And I give the rationale that US does is the best. Like you would find, I quoted specific policies that you has worked, you has issued, and they are pretty good. The overall idea is that one you want to highlight, you want to reiterate it again and again that you are gonna come back and you're gonna serve Pakistan, and you then be specific about it, how you're gonna do that. Number two, also spend few sentences. I won't say even a whole para, but just a couple of sentences here and there. How does UCEFP or like Fulbright benefits from your participation if they select you? So you be able to say that you are gonna be able to bring diverse your diversity to the campus. That you have your own specific and this unique experience of living in Pakistan and working in Pakistan, and you can share that and people can learn from this. So like phrase it a bit more humbly, I guess. But yeah, but so that those two elements, that you want to come back to Pakistan and serve it, and how you're gonna do it, serve it specifically, and then second, how does Fulbright benefits from you, and also be don't be like I think even every reader, if they just read the study objective or personal statement, they know if it's fluff or not. So like don't exaggerate, don't lie, be mindful, like what you like, don't try to fool reader, if it makes sense. I'm not sure if like I'm able to convey what I'm trying to say, but don't make it fluff, be very concrete, be very specific, stuff like that. Yeah, do your research completely. So if you are in fintech, you can uh, quickly Google like what are the major fintech companies, what major fintech policies US has issued, stuff like that. Okay. And the second question, which I think Umar also wanted me to answer, but I kind of skipped it, was like in my presentation, like how has it impacted me, my career trajectory after coming back and stuff. Sorry. Um, I think there is certain, it does take time to for you to adjust back. I came back in May, the weather like intense, like intense heat, intense temperatures. So it does take a little bit of time for you to adjust back. But very quickly you do get adjusted. I know people in my batch who are trying to go back to like other countries or even US. Um, I think if you want to go to back to US, World Bank and IMF are an option because they allow Fulbright folks to still go back before completing their 2 year requirement. But in terms of my career trajectory, I actually feel like my quality of work has significantly improved. I'm more confident in my work. I'm more confident in my work. I'm I'm able to incorporate ideas that I learned there here. Um, so it's a very simple idea. But like for example, in one of the classes that they said that they taught us about this voucher program to improve the company comprehension of students in schools. So I'm trying to implement that kind of similar thing back in Pakistan. So you do get a lot of resources. That's why I said in the presentation, then try to learn as much as possible during those 2 years. And then I feel pretty happy. I feel pretty satisfied where I am at the moment in my current workplace, State Bank of Pakistan. But yeah, I feel like the answer would vary in terms of where do people land up. Um, yeah. There is another question: how long it took you for applying in this Fulbright program after graduation? Um, do you mean I did my undergraduate in 2018. I graduated in May 2018, and for the Fulbright program that I got accepted, I applied in 2021. In I think May, I got my result like that. I have been accepted in September, October, and then I flew to US in May 2022, August 2022. So yeah, so graduated in 2018, applied in 21, went to US in 2022. That's the timeline. Do we have any more questions? Or is that it? Also, like, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn for any other queries.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nouman. Would you like to share your LinkedIn profile in the chat?
Oh, yeah, I'll do that quickly. Actually, I'm not sure if I can do it from my laptop because LinkedIn is not allowed on this Wi-Fi. But if you just Google, honestly, Nouman Ahmed Fulbright, I'm pretty sure you would find it. Nouman Ahmed Fulbright LinkedIn, you would find the profile link.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much, Nouman, for joining us today and sharing your Fulbright journey. It was very insightful. And thank you everyone for joining us today. In case you have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to reach out to us. The applications are open right now, and the deadline is March 5th. Good luck on your application. And once again, thank you, Nouman. You all have a good day.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.